Welcome back to the Indoorfins. That's Ethan.
And that's Tuesday.
If you're wondering why Ethan may sound a little different this week, he's been struggling with the head cold slash flu slash everything.
Either that or I've been replaced by a robot from Planet 9. It's up to you to decide. Okay. Error.
Error message 404 ethan.exe has crashed. Anyway, welcome back to a very different edition of the Indoorfins podcast. Today, the conversation is going to be a lot different than it usually has been. I know normally that we go through scores, highlights, tend to talk about the things that we like, things that we don't like. Today, we're going to switch it up a little bit.
Yeah. So, normally we would start off the top with a recap of this week's scores around the league in the NFL or the MLB playoffs that are happening. But we had a chat and we decided that we wanted to talk a little bit about our feelings toward why we watch or why we don't watch the NFL. And, to a lesser extent, sports in general. What makes us stay attached or leave in that regard. With regards to the NFL in this case. So we're going to have a little discussion here. If you'll bear with us at the Indoorfins.
Going through changes.
We're going to go through a little journey here through the sonic space. And maybe we'll discover some things. Some new things, some old things. Some borrowed things, some blue things. To turn a phrase. So, Tuesday, you want to start us off?
Yeah, no problem. So this subject in particular, I guess I'll start off simply because I'm the negative. I'm the anti.
Oh.
I don't know. There's a debate term for it when you're trying to take like one side or the other, and I know it's not like positive or negative. I know it's a more nuanced term than that. But where I'm going with this is I don't actually particularly enjoy watching the NFL. Generally, when I get the information when we're having the conversation is from highlights on YouTube. I don't actually watch the games on Sunday as they're happening. And the issue that I have, particularly with the NFL, is not anything to do with Colin Kaepernick. Colin Kaepernick and the movement of taking a knee and everything that particular movement stands for is something that needs to be talked about. And it is one of those things that took a lot of eyes, in particular people of color, in particular Black Americans, took a lot of eyes away from the NFL. But my issues with the NFL do not actually initially stem from everything that happened with Colin Kaepernick. My issues with the NFL actually stem from the book that led to Will Smith's movie Concussion, League of Denial. I did not know that at that time, I did not know that Concussion was going to be made a film. At the time, all I knew was that there was this book that was detailing how the NFL had created a culture where concussions were under-discussed. They were under-researched, and the long-term negative side effects were brushed under the rug. I had a lot of issues with a lot of things that happened to Mike Webster and a lot of the different players in between. But when it hit home for me, actually, was the day that I found out Junior Seau died. The day that I found out that one of my personal favorite players, one of the people who I always wanted to see what he had done. I always wanted to see what his highlights were going to be for the week because, honestly, he was a monstrous linebacker and he was a great human being outside of the game of football. And to hear that at such a young age, so soon after he had retired, that he had passed away, that was devastating enough. To hear that one of my favorite players of all time had shot himself in the chest so that his brain could be studied and help all of the players that were coming after him. As you can hear, like, it still actually is a little difficult to discuss. I think that was the day when I personally said that I couldn't actually watch this game as just a fan. I had to do my due diligence, and I went and read League of Denial again. Um, I did as much research as I can into CTE, and I honestly can't pronounce that long form, so I'm just gonna call it CTE. Um, Detailing all of the different ways in which the game affects the brain, and all of the different ways in which the game doesn't protect the brain. The designs for the helmets, the way the guys tackle each other, the aggressive style in which the game is played, and I started to look back, and I started to look at video compilations where, people are the really big ones for the NFL are the ones with the like biggest hits, most violent hits, yada yada yada. And I started watching those, and instead of going, "Oh man, that was amazing," I kept looking at how the other guy did not get up. I watched Trent Green. I remember the time he got hit sliding, and it was helmet to helmet. And I mean, you watch these guys go unconscious live on television. You're watching guys break bones. You're watching guys tear ligaments. You're watching guys do all these. These are very serious long-term injuries that require tons of surgery, rehabilitation, all those different kinds of things. These are different long-term injuries where guys are, going to have a limp for the rest of their lives when they're walking, or something as simple as, the arthritis in their knee or whatever is going to ache every time that it snows or something. Like, that's kind of an old man thing, but it's happening to guys who are 35. When I looked up CTE, and I realized that it's pretty much end of days dementia. And these are guys who are 40, 45 years old, and nobody had ever seen this in somebody who was, not younger than 70. Um, the terrifying reality of what this game does to a man's body, the terrifying reality of what this does to a man's psyche, it's honestly too much for me. And I'm not going to sit here and say I don't understand the entertainment value of it. I'm not going to sit here and say that I don't understand the nuance. I'm not going to sit here and say that I don't understand anything about the X's and O's of football, because I do. I understand that it's a tactical game. There's a lot of work. There's a lot of genius. There's a lot of detail that goes into winning, losing, or drawing in a football game. There's a lot of skill, athleticism, technical ability, pure speed. There are ways to excite a crowd by simply playing football. I to this day, there's nothing like watching a guy launch it 50, 60 yards down the field for a pass, and watching the guy catch it in his stride and pretty much walk into the end zone. That's beautiful. There's nothing more beautiful than watching a guy run up the middle, disappear into a crowd full of people, and then all of a sudden he's 12, 15, 20 yards down the field, still running with the ball, and the defense is looking around like, how did he get out of there? Like, I'm not going to sit here and say that there's not entertainment value to this game. I'm not going to sit here and say that I don't understand why people would want to watch this game. There are plenty of reasons to watch this game, and Ethan will get into those because that's the other side of this. But what I wanted to make sure I got into today was, for me personally, I know too much about the truth of what happens to these players after they leave. I know what happens to players' money after they leave professional sports. We all know the statistics about guys going broke all the time. We all know the statistics about guys having medical issues and not being taken care of. There have been multiple class action lawsuits against the NFL in the past few years based on the fact that these guys aren't getting health care after they're being taken care of. Like we take care of our veterans better than we take care of the NFL players. And both of those both subsets of people, veterans, military veterans and NFL players, they have a union. They have you got the Veterans Association. If you don't have I don't know if that qualifies as a union, but you got the Veterans Association. You're supposed to have somebody who is on the side of the guys who aren't necessarily on the front lines anymore. And just because you're not on the front lines anymore does not mean you're not at war anymore. This is the same argument. It's after you're off of the field, after you're off of the battlefield. Both sets of people that I'm talking about in this moment, veterans and football players. You have PTSD. You have long-term injuries that need to be taken care of. And you have a country where we have some of the best medical care in the world. And I struggle to understand why we can't find resources to take care of all of these different types of injuries, all of these different types of players. Just because somebody, was on the field for 5 minutes versus out there for 20 years and is going to go in the Hall of Fame with the rack of accolades, like there's nothing majorly different between both of those guys. They both went through the same things and they both sacrificed so much to get to that level. And that's where I'm at with the NFL is how can we appreciate what's happening in the present when we know that the players in the past aren't being taken care of, when we know that in the future, the players that we're watching now that we care about, from Tom Brady to Patrick Mahomes, the veterans to the new guys who are on the rise, we know that in the future, these guys are going to have problems and they're going to have to fight tooth and nail to get taken care of. This is why I cannot, in clear conscience, watch nor cover the NFL.
All right. Well, that was. Okay. I have to follow that. Okay. No, you're good. Well, I wasn't expecting all of that.
I've been sitting on that for a long time.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, I definitely thought part of that was going to be it. Okay. Well, for me,
tell the story that you told off.
Off air, I told Tuesday about growing up. I actually didn't watch football until the age of 15 or 16. And I had always played backyard football a little bit, just like in a front yard setting, and not really got into Madden football or any other football games until the Colts got to the Super Bowl. And then I got super into it as a bandwagon fan. Yeah, whatever.
I mean, but just to break that up for a second, let's be honest with ourselves. Peyton Manning was always a really good quarterback, but for us to actually get to and win the Super Bowl, particularly with the way that they beat the Patriots in the championship game, that was the perfect time to jump on the Colts, Peyton Manning. That's the perfect time to say, you know what, I'm actually really happy to be a Colts fan.
Yeah. And, of course, I got a Rex Grossman jersey.
Hey, but that's another thing about growing up in Indianapolis is usually your teams are crap, so you usually go to Chicago, Detroit, or somewhere in Ohio to get a good team.
Yeah. Anyway, but I wanted to be a football player after that, and I was always semi-serious about it. I wanted to play for the high school team. My parents really wouldn't let me because they were afraid of me getting hurt. So, of course, I tried out for the basketball team, and I injured myself on the first day of tryouts, and I sprained my ankle. Ouch. But, yeah, tennis season was literally the same time as football season, so that didn't really work out so well. But I always kept at it, training to be a kicker. My long was 43 yards, which wasn't anything to laugh at as somebody who never had training before. And then when I went to college, we didn't have a football team, so I helped start a flag football team there. And it's one of my friends who was on there was on a semi-pro team there in San Francisco, and he asked me to go to tryouts with them, and I said yeah. And so I tried out, and I got on the team as a kicker the first year, and second year I played mostly offensive line, and was decent. And so from then, it was always just kind of an envious spot watching football games and wanting to play football outside of there, and also just being really competitive. And having played semi-pro football, I was on the receiving end of a few hits. My first, literally my first game, like preseason game as kicker, I took a blindside hit to the back that hit me on the ground, and I don't think it knocked me out, but like I hit the ground and everything went black for like a split second, and I got back up. And you know, I don't like to think of myself as having experienced concussions, but I think that kind of belays the. It is. It's different when you're playing the game and you're in that atmosphere of not wanting to disappoint your teammates and your coach.
And the camaraderie.
What? Yeah. And you always have that feeling of like you want to get out there, especially if you're a backup, like I was for the first year.
Because you want to be able to prove your worth to the team.
Yeah, and you want to. It's difficult to defend the NFL. From what they've done in the past, and are continuing to do with the Colin Kaepernick situation and Eric Reed and the anthem and all this stuff that's happening now. And I, when you were saying all these things, I was agreeing with you. So I can't actually say that I was against those points, but at the same time, I wanted to watch the game. So it's like put me in this position where I don't like what they've done to players and to players' families and to Colin Kaepernick and to any player who protested. And I supported them, but at the same time, I was still watching games. And so for me, it was kind of like I'm in this conundrum where I'm like, I didn't really want to give up the game, even though I knew that they were doing stuff wrong. So, I don't know. Like, if I don't know how many other fans feel this way.
And that's exactly why I wanted to have this conversation on record and post it online for everybody to hear, because this is a conversation that, if I'm being honest with you, with our audience, not you in just specifics, but with everybody at large, this is a conversation that a lot of people have been having over the course of the past couple of years, is how do you as a fan, say, okay, I understand that this is happening, but also, people are still getting paid to play this game. Advertisers are still putting money into the players, into the organization's pockets. Like we're still out here buying, shirts, and we're buying tickets, and we're going to concessions. And I mean, this is how a large subset of people make their living. There's more than just 53 players and a head coach.
Right.
Like, you have the entire assistant coaches. you have the entire coaching staff, I guess I should say. You have the front office organization staff. We're talking, scouts, the advanced statistics guys. I don't know if they do that in football as much as they do in baseball, but like let's just assume those guys are in the front office somewhere.
Assistants,
We're talking about
stadium managers.
Everybody who's in charge of cleaning up the turf, everybody who's in charge of keeping up with all the equipment. This is how I want to now all of a sudden I'm like, dang, we should pause this and look up the numbers to see just how many people are directly and indirectly employed by the NFL. Like, this is not just affecting a small amount of people. Like, these are livelihoods of probably hundreds, if not a few thousand people every single year, let alone the people who are participating at the college level. And we've got 3 tiers of college football: Division I, the football bowl subdivision, Division II, Division III. You're talking about guys who are playing in high school. You got guys who are, playing in prep teams. You got guys who are in junior college. Go watch Last Chance U. You'll definitely find out what's going on at the JUCO level. There are literally hundreds of thousands of people at the end of the day, in all likelihood, who in one way or another are looking to the sport of American football to make their living. And how can we as fans say, I don't appreciate the way a couple 100,000 people are being, okay, let me take that number out. I don't appreciate how the players are being treated. But also, how do you, as a fan, say, I should take my money out of this if I know somebody who works for one of these organizations? Or, if you're the Packers and you're owned by the people, the people are going to decide whether or not they want to even be a part of this anymore. And it's like, this is such a part of their community. This is such a part of the neighborhood, How can you just turn your back on something that has galvanized entire communities? How many times do you watch a documentary or somebody makes a series on a small town and it shuts down on Friday nights when their kids in high school go travel halfway across the state to go play somebody in a game? Entire towns shut down. You know what I mean? We're talking about, if they win or lose a game, this is going to set the tone for the entire week for 400 or 500 people, Like, there are families, communities, towns that are built upon the game of football. And how do you just take that away from people? I'm with you, because it is something that tears me apart on the inside, because when I look at it this way, I'm like, can we, how do we ethically say, all right, if we're not going to play this game anymore, where are we going to put everybody? Because now all of a sudden, all of the equipment people are looking for a job, and all the people who are in those particular all of the people who are in those particular job settings are looking for a job. We're looking at players who have a skill set who really, outside of rugby, doesn't really translate well to too many other sports. You're going to have to pretty much retrain yourself to play something different. Yeah, you're an elite athlete who's in peak physical condition, but you've been trained to play one game. You can't stick a football player on a basketball court and expect them to do amazing 10 times out of 10. They'll get some pretty good alley-oops going, but like, can you imagine an offensive lineman trying to be a center all of a sudden, and he's never dribbled a ball in his life?
Well, I mean, I guess I could think of a couple examples. If I take it back to my alma mater, San Francisco State, when they had a football team in the early 90s, they got rid of it. I think in 94 was the last year they had a football team, and they haven't had one since. So it is possible. They had a pretty bad team, and that was the reason why, is nobody was attending, and they were like, "Well, this is the worst."
It's not making
and
money.
that's not
entertaining
usual.
people.
Like, that's a rare case, and
very true.
They had a winning baseball team and basketball team in that case, so they kept those two and got rid of the football team and kept the soccer field instead. So, I mean, you could look at that model and be like, all right, well, it worked in that regard in that one college, so maybe, we could try it elsewhere. Um,
I can see that happening in the small programs, but feasibly, like tomorrow, could you imagine what would happen if, let's just let's throw this out there.
well,
Just because,
no, it has happened at a larger program. Look at SMU,
ooh, you're
the
right.
death penalty
Death
back in the
penalty.
80s.
Yeah.
Now,
That's
that
true.
granted, they have gotten their football program
They
back.
did. Yeah,
but
they do have
for
a program
long
again.
time, it was gone
Mm-hmm.
because of the cheating and all the NCAA penalty. So it has been gone from big colleges before.
But I'm just saying, like, what if? And I know this is definitely like an improbability at best. What if we just tomorrow was like, no more Alabama, no more Oklahoma, USC, UCLA, those types of major Clemson, because then all of a sudden you're like, I mean, these are programs that generate revenue like nothing else, and we're not even gonna touch how athletes aren't getting paid.
If you went on a technical level, you could technically get rid of them legally, because based on investigations, Alabama, all these SEC colleges, and probably USC, I'm allegedly, have NCAA violations out the wazoo. So if the NCAA were to get off their butts and actually do something, they could march themselves into Alabama right now and be like, get all those files, get them up there to NCAA headquarters now. You're under investigation. You're being interviewed now. They could take down at least 6 or 7 colleges in about 3 weeks if they wanted to.
I was always told it's not about who's cheating, it's about who gets caught cheating.
Exactly. And it's about who actually does the investigation.
Also, yes. Because you could always hire somebody to do an investigation, or you could always have somebody who's doing an investigation, and if, let's just say, they have somebody's hand in their pockets, or if they have a conflict of interest or a personal interest in, wanting to keep that program up and running, all of a sudden you're running this, months-long investigation, and at the end of it, that'll be like, not that.
It's the difference between Harvey Dent and Two-Face running for DA. If you catch my drift.
You'd have to.
Harvey Dent runs on the platform, no corruption.
If Harvey Dent were to run, Harvey Dent would be like, all of these programs are going under, and all of these programs are going to be restructured.
Yeah, you see, what's his name walk in with the handcuffs and is like, who's getting arrested?
Everybody.
Yeah.
And then, like, Two-Face would just be like, all right, cool, so I've got this coin.
Yeah.
And heads, you stay a program. Tails, you're coming with me.
Yeah, exactly. There is one thing that bothered me a bit, and it is like, football, they're always talking about, we're making the game safer, we're doing this and we're doing, and there's really like nothing short of making it two-hand touch or flag football that they could really do.
No, that's another thing about it, is because if we really want to make this a game where it's quote unquote safe to play, then at the end of it, we're probably going to have to take a lot of the contact out of it. And that's why, the kickoff got moved. It's why pass interference and roughing the passer and all those different kinds of things have been changed. It's why you can't hit guys, leading with the crown of your helmet. It's why they created the tuck rule. It's why they created the Tom Brady rule, where you can't hit the quarterback below the knee. You remember that year where that's the only time Tom Brady's ever been seriously injured. They hit him below his legs. He tore his ACL.
But they're so inconsistent. That's the thing. The refs, And they keep talking on and on about like, oh, well, we should put a chip in the ball, or like, oh, we should do this and that, and they never do it. They're gonna have it. It bring really quick. We're coming up on 30-minute mark right now. I have those highlight videos you talked about. I watched some of those too, and had similar reactions growing up. But then my reaction shifted, and I didn't watch those as much, but I watched like some of those videos they put up with the baseball, like they put a few videos up where like the liners would come back and hit.
Yes, that's
and from the very first time I watched that video, my reactions to all the football hit videos changed. Like,
because it's pretty much the same thing happening.
Yeah, and then I realized, like, the first time I saw a liner hit, I was like, that's what's happening. And then, like,
the difference is football is intentional.
Like, I was literally having the same reaction they were having in baseball when the guy got hit with a liner. Like,
you're like, oh,
I was
no.
like, oh, like, this is serious.
Yes.
And, like, I was almost crying. Because, like, it's like a gut reaction when you see somebody hit like that with a baseball. You're like...
Because I don't remember who it was, but I remember, like, one time I watched a liner and somebody came back afterwards and they were like, he broke his eye socket, Like, he was,
It was Giancarlo Stanton. Well, the pitch, I think. He got hit with a pitch and right in the face. And he was bleeding, like, on the side, yeah.
Okay. Because I have seen, like, guys standing in, like, the on-deck circle and stuff like that. And
oh, shoot.
Yeah, there's, I mean, it doesn't, and that's also the other thing is that when it happens in baseball, we're aware of the fact that it's not on purpose and we're aware of the damage that it's doing. And we're like, yo, like, that's bad. And then when you're watching it happen in football, you watch basically, instead of somebody getting hit with a ball, like, you're watching a whole body, crush another body. And instead of going, ooh, like, the human body's probably not meant to, go through that. You're like, hell yeah, hit him again.
Yeah. But, like, I saw some differences, like, when Teddy Bridgewater was hit in the helmet and stayed down, there wasn't that same, like, genuine
we don't
concern
have that reaction
on the
as
opponent's
football fans,
like, faces as there was, like, when Hap got hit and stayed down for the same period of time. Like, or he was a pitcher that got hit with a liner.
Okay.
Like, he didn't go unconscious, but he went down and then came back up. Like, like the guy that hit him, like, he saw it and, like, went like that. And then, like, he was still into first, but, like, he went down. And then, like, everybody in the dugouts was, like, looking. And it's just like, I don't know. If you see somebody go down, like, and hit a head like that, and they come up, like, eventually, after a few seconds, I feel like there should still be the same concern as shown in baseball, even if they're not down for that long. Because in baseball it's serious, and you should know by now in football that it's just as serious, even if they're not down for that long. Because if somebody gets hit at the knee and they go down, and they have to bring the card out, you all get down on one knee and you're sitting in a circle. So, I don't know.
And it's the same thing when I'm watching soccer, when I'm watching European football. Ryan Mason had a head-to-head collision. He was a Hull City player. He retired actually after this particular injury. But it's very rare to see this happen. But two guys went up for a header. Ryan Mason, I don't remember who the other player was, to be honest with you. But Ryan Mason did not get back up. I mean, it was actually terrifying that he didn't get back up because head-to-head collisions, no helmets, full force, and come to find out that he had fractured his skull. He was actually really close to not making it. He's a commentator now.
Jeez.
And, there's long-term effects to this. And it ended someone's career you know, and we watch that as football fans, and we're just and it's a little overreactionary in this sport where you're like, do we take headers out of the game? I'm sorry, but if you take headers out of the game of football, out of soccer football, like it's not the same sport. Like if you can't touch the ball with your head, like it's just it defeats the purpose, honestly, and it takes out a good quarter of what you're capable of doing with the ball. But just everybody is super aware when horror tackles, guys go in, studs up, take somebody's legs out. I mean, there's a couple of times, I know the footage is out there somewhere. I don't remember the name off the top of my head, but there was a guy one time who got tackled so hard, like he literally, like you could see his bone, like he, like the cleats had gone through. And he's looking down at himself and he sees this and he's like, you can see it on his face. He's like, I didn't even know this was capable of happening during this game, But that's the thing is when you're playing a game and you set the rules in a way so that those injuries can't happen, they're A, much more rare, and B, when they are significant in terms of damage and significant in terms of the amount of time that you're going to have to spend away from the field, everybody understands this is bigger than the game. Like we're gonna have to step back for a moment and just say, as a person, we're gonna have to do something different. But that's the thing about American football fans is we have created this culture where we see a guy go down and you see guys just throwing their phones and they're like, well, there goes my fantasy team for the week. And it's like, dang, dude, like he's not just a statistic, he's not just a statistic on your computer screen. Like that is a man who's got a family in all likelihood. This is somebody who is playing this game for a living and has sacrificed most of these guys have sacrificed from the age of 5 and 6 at Pop Warner all the way to wherever college they went to. And they have to go to college and they have to pretty much go for 4 years to continue to develop physically to be able to play this game at a professional level. Yeah. And then they get there and you're worried about your fantasy score. This is a guy who lives, breathes, and poops football. And y'all are worried about your fantasy score when they go down with an injury that's going to take them out for the rest of the year. I remember people had that reaction. What was the name of that Bills player who broke his neck on the kickoff? I remember I was near somebody who had one of those reactions when they were like, well, nah, there goes my fantasy score for the day. And I'm just like, even if he's not even really that, an important player to have on your team, even if he's in like that extra like utility spot over, I'm just sitting here like, this is much more important than whatever is going to happen in a Yahoo chat room. And I don't know. I think that's another reason why I struggle so hard with the NFL is I'm not necessarily going to say that like fantasy football is not a good thing. I actually really enjoyed playing fantasy football all the times that I did. I enjoy fantasy sports in general, but like the culture of fantasy football in general was so toxic. Watching guys, even if it was a guy who was just going to be out for a quarter, who, he like hurt his elbow or whatever, sprained his ankle, was going to go back out there, to hear the way that, just to hear the way that the fans were going after some of these guys just on the internet, just in person. It's scary how not human we see the people who are playing this game. And we got to get back to a point to where we can see these players as people who have lives and feelings outside of the game of football.
I agree.
Because maybe to some degree they will be defined by the things that they do on that field, but just know that like they only spend 3 or 4 hours on that field on a Sunday. Like they got to go to work and like they train to get better the rest of the week, and once they're done with the game, they're going to have to find something else to do. And unfortunately, this is a whole nother conversation, but unfortunately for a lot of players, they've only known football for so long that you ask them to do something else, they're like, what? That's all. Like I said, that's a whole nother conversation though, is training people to be successful outside of athletic accomplishments.
Yeah. So, all right. Well,
that is a much heavier episode of the Indoorfins.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that most of you are used to. I appreciate each and every last one of you for subscribing to our YouTube channel. I appreciate each and every last one of you that follows us on Instagram. I appreciate all of the 5 followers that we have on Twitter. I appreciate everybody that follows and has liked and or commented on our posts on Facebook. If you haven't followed us, we are at Real Indoorfins on Twitter.
12
we are
followers on Facebook now.
Yeah, sweet.
Hey, there you go.
We are the Indoorfins podcast everywhere else. Twitter. Well, that's how you find us on Twitter, but Instagram, Facebook, and that's how you find our. No, that's how you find our YouTube. It's okay. Ethan almost dropped his mic. It's all. That's great. But like I said, we appreciate everybody who follows us. We appreciate everybody who interacts with us. Please continue to do so. We are continuing to grow. We are continuing to find our voice, and we're continuing to find our audience. We love and appreciate each and every last one of you. The Indoorfins podcast is not possible without the passion that my co-host Ethan has, without the passion that I have for sports, for people, for empathy, for love, for continuing to learn to love and grow as people on this earth in a world where it seems like we have a lot of things, but we don't seem to have compassion. I know I'm a little incendiary at times. I have compassion for
all love.
I have. It comes from a place of love. I want the world to change because I have love for everybody, and I want everybody to be successful, and I want everybody to be happy, and I want everybody to not have to worry about some of the very mundane things that we find ourselves having to worry about on a week-to-week, month-to-month basis. I love and appreciate everybody, and from Tuesday, I guess that's all I got today.
Yep. And this is Ethan, signing off sickly, but getting better. So.
We're going to go off there, and we're going to shove them full of Mucinex and vitamin C. Ethan will be good.
All right. Thank you for listening. Take care.
We'll see you next week.
On the Indoorfins.
On the Indoorfins.